What's up, guys? This week in Top the DPS, we're going to talk about swapping talents and LFR testing. Okay, now that I'm back into the heroic swing of things and kind of retesting some of these fights in the heroic difficulties, I've noticed a lot more that talent swapping becomes a little bit more important. And knowing which talents you want to take and which ones are optimal, you can search on the forums. And you can go through and probably find some really good information, especially from, like Method and Blood Legion and, some of the top guys who, whether they stream or not or whether they put up guides, you can probably find the information. However, one of the best ways to do this is also to try it yourself, head into LFR, and to go through and see exactly which ones work best for you. Like for me, this week I wanted to test out Lei Shen, okay? As the guild is working on Dark Animus Heroic, that means that Lei Shen's the last one we have left before Raden. And so I've been really working on trying to find out the best kind of combination for burst AoE for when the ball lightning comes out, right? Because there's so much damage that can be done in that phase, and with the changes to mages in 5.3, I wanted to test some things out. So in this fight, I'm actually using Glyph of Cone of Cold, Flame Strike, and then I'm using my Flame Strike and my Arcane Explosion once all the ads are bunched up. And I was trying that route out. Now, granted, I was recording this at the same time, so you'll see a little bit of lag, and that's just because it's a 25-minute. I haven't got my new computer yet. But the greatest thing about testing these things, guys, is whether or not the idea, you know what I mean? Like, the ads are obviously not going to live as long. The positioning is not going to be perfect, right? The way that people use their cooldowns is not going to be perfect. As you saw in the first clip of this video, when we popped here at the start, there was no Skull Banner, there was no Stormlash down at all during the entire heroism phase, okay? During an actual raid, especially at 25-man, when you actually have a group of people who know what they're doing, those things happen every time. So, understanding that there are going to be some subtle changes, but for the most part, in the heroic, it's the health of these ads are a lot more, and getting them, staying out, spreading out, and then quick stacking and bursting AoE down once everybody gets in is a huge part of that fight, as well as pretty much everything else in that fight. But that is one of the biggest things that I've seen where mages start to really get beat, especially as a fire mage, is what are they using? So I've gone through their logs, some of the top mage parses for heroic Lei Shen. I've gone through some of their logs, trying to kind of piece together what they could be using and what they might be using. And it's very hard to do that, but for the most part, I wanted to go in here and this time, and I wanted to test that out, right? So I wanted to test out and see if I stacked Flame Strike with Cone of Cold with Arcane Explosion and just nuke those ads, if that would be higher damage output than not using Glyph of Cone of Cold and just spamming the other two, or possibly taking my Living Bomb and trying to time that so that it's exploding once the ads are grouped up along with those other things. There's a lot of little things that can really boost your numbers in a fight, and LFR is a great way to test those things. I really recommend it, guys, especially if you're working on a fight in progression, whether it be normal mode or heroic mode. Go into LFR and practice these things, okay? Don't worry about anyone else in the group. Say, okay, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to do this like I have to do this in this. Okay, well, that worked well. And actually, sometimes it's okay if you wipe, because then you can go back through and maybe change some things up before you have to go do it, or maybe you re-queue and you do it again. All little things to try to help your raid out so that you're not that guy who doesn't know what he's doing, okay? And it's also going to really help your DPS as well to be able to kind of go, to get the feel of the fight, because you can watch all the videos you want, and you can do as much reading as you want, but until you actually get to put attempts on the boss and kind of figure out exactly what's going on, you start to notice different things. So this is where you want to go through an LFR, and if you know a fight's coming up next week on progression, go in there and go through your talents and go through your skills and go through the logs and go, well, what are they doing that's making their DPS so high? Are they cheesing it? You know what I mean? Like, what parts are they really doing here? And going through and deciding, oh, well, I think they're using this, or I think they're using that, because that would explain that high amount of damage for that. And being able to interpret these things as well as bring your own kind of twist to it is a great way to test out your numbers and to make sure that when you step into the fight for real, whether it's normal mode or heroic mode, that you're ready to go, that you're going to pull the best numbers that you can, and that you're going to get things done the way that you want to get them done and be topping those meters, because that's where we want to be. We want to be that badass on the top, that everybody else goes, man, those are some good numbers. I wish I could get up there. But it comes from practicing, guys. It really does. The guys who make all these world firsts and do all this stuff, it's because they pulled the boss so many times. They have so many multiple pulls, multiple talent trials, multiple different, maybe even reforging options and trial and errors that way as well. So that way when when they're progressing, they're learning every attempt. And that way when they parse these gigantic numbers, it's because they've had so much time. The good news is these are the guys that have pioneered the way for us during every fight, so we can go in and kind of not really steal the information, but say, oh, well, this is what they did here and this is what they did here. Oh, well, that makes sense, and this is why they did it. And then, okay, well, if I do that, and maybe if I try this and this, maybe this will work for me a little bit better with our raid comp, with our, in our 10-man and our 25-man, whatever it may be. But being able to go through and test things in LFR and swap out different talents, swap out different rotations for like AoE, depending on the amount of ads, how long they're going to be alive, etc., and practice those things in an LFR setting, really will help you in the long run when it comes to normal mode and heroic mode. There obviously will be some different minor adjustments, but if you have those things practiced and you have, the cast sequences worked out, so where, okay, I'm going to cast this, I'm going to cast this, I'm going to try to make this explode when all the ads are up, I'm going to try this glyph out, and go in there and try it. And if you realize that, your numbers aren't quite where you want them to be, or they weren't where you thought you would be, or maybe you're realizing that there's too much downtime or whatever, then you can adjust some things. Or you go through the logs and you realize a couple of different things, but their numbers are way higher, then adjust them accordingly that way. But it doesn't happen without trial and error, guys. It really doesn't. So if you can save your guild some headache and you can go in there with a couple of ideas on how to really knock some numbers out, during those first couple of attempts, okay, well, these couple of attempts I'm going to try this way. Okay, this next couple of attempts I'm going to try this and see if this helps. And again, it comes down to your comp too, guys. If your comp has extremely strong AoE, maybe you are more of the extremely strong single target DPS in your raid group. If the ball lightnings aren't a problem for your raid group and they're going down quick and no one's dying and there's not a ton of extra damage going out, then maybe you don't worry about it. Maybe you're just tunneling into the boss and just kind of cleaving off as you see fit. But if it's imperative to blow something up in a quick amount of time, go in there and practice that scenario. Again, it's not going to be as realistic as humanly possible, obviously, until you get to pull it in your own raid group. But LFR testing makes raiding a lot simpler because you get to see the mechanics, you get to see how they work. So I wanted to bring you guys this video because it really kind of is something that's important, and I really feel like a lot of people go into fights in their raid group having never seen the fight, having never tried the fight, having never researched the fight, and if you don't test something out, you're just walking in there blind, and you're really going to stall your progression as a group if everybody's doing that. Whereas if everybody's going in there and practicing and saying, okay, well, I like this and I like how this works, and well, this guy did it this way, I'm going to go in there and try it. Trial and error will do nothing but make you better, I promise. So I hope you guys like this one, and as always, see you in the next one.